Social Security is an important part of many Americans' retirement income, especially as people are living longer. But with the full retirement age from 67 to 65, would the cost of living continue to increase? Every last penny counts and helps so many people out. So folks, let's get into the most important stimulus news that I want you guys to know. Because there's a ton of information that is very important about the fourth stimulus check. And many people associate Social Security with retired Americans. Well, the elderly are especially dependent on the program as well, with almost 9 out of 10 Americans facing this problem. And now, nearly 2/3 of the House has signed into a bill that will boost Social Security to the public sector workers with government pensions who currently see limited return benefits. The bill has gathered around 290 co-sponsors and a threshold that could allow its backers to force a vote on House floor and offer leverage as they work to get through the chamber. Under the House rules, the bills with at least 290 co-sponsors can be put on the consensus calendar, a process that allows rank-and-file members to force widely backed bills to the floor if the committee of jurisdiction won't take it up. It was referred to as Ways and Means on January 9th, and the panel has scheduled a meeting to consider it. Now, according to congressional research data, it would actually aid more than 90,000 people in the state of Louisiana. Even representatives are a notable voice for the GOP conference after helping a broker debt limit agreement on Kevin McCarthy and build consensus among Republican members. But now they're aiming to boost Social Security payments for public workers and government pensions and things like this for people who have jobs covered by Social Security taxes. Now, the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset reduce Social Security payouts and spousal benefits for employees in an effort to avert highly unfair payouts. And groups representing retired teachers, police officers, and state and local employees say the reductions go too far and unfairly punish the public savants. But so far, everybody, here's what Joe Biden has to say about this. The bill would actually rack up 305 co-sponsors in the last Congress under Democratic control of the House, but Ways and Means Committee held a markup as a means of waiting to turn off the consensus calendar. The panel's leaders at the time tried to broker a deal on a scaled-back version, but those talks ultimately fell through. Even this year's bill, co-sponsors have flocked to the bill more quickly, giving people more time to decide what they want to see. Folks, we got a ton of news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, Ssdi and Ssdi. Continue to watch the video because you definitely don't want to miss out on this.
Have one thing at the top, gas prices. Just to provide you all an update on where we are currently with gas prices. We have now been falling for almost 7 straight weeks. As of this morning, gas prices have dropped 81 cents per gallon since their peak in June, as you'll see from the chart to my left here. That means American families who with 2 cars are saving $80 a month. Drivers can now find gas for $3.99 or less at around half of all gas stations across the country, and average gasoline prices have come below $3.99 in 19 states. Putin's war is still...
The announcement comes at a crucial time for Congress as many Democrats will soon face a campaign re-election. The news came several hours after the Senate passed a separate bill to invest $50 billion in U.S. manufacturing semiconductors, sending it to the House to reconsider as soon as this week. Manchin's support is notable given his stance earlier this month that he wouldn't support the climate or tax provisions of the Democratic economic package, which appeared to torpedo any hope Democrats had of passing legislation to fight climate change in the near future. Manchin and Schumer have been in revived talks over the past few weeks. The deal is still facing multiple hurdles before it can make it to Biden's desk, including the parliamentarian. Biden is still putting cash to people's pockets during a long stretch of inflation. The $1.9 trillion stimulus bill that Democrats enacted in March without Republican support is helping set the stage for another round of relief payments at the state level. At least 18 states, including California and Florida, have taken a step this year, with Congress gridlocked on how to deal with the worst inflation in 4 decades. The law set aside $350 billion in aid for state and local governments aimed at preventing layoffs or big cuts to public services. Few strings were attached to the money to guarantee flexibility, and it largely amounted to a blank check for states and cities. But those fear of job losses and wrecked budgets never materialized, so states spend less than expected. In addition, a report from the National Association of State Budget Officers found nearly all states reported pulling in far more tax revenue than originally forecasted. A growing number are channeling booming budgets into a fresh wave of checks to help middle and low-income families. Ron DeSantis announced earlier this week that it's using $36 million of American Rescue Plan to issue a $450 check per kid to the poorest families. That's on top of $1,000 cash bonuses to first responders using federal aid in the spring. The source of Florida Next Relief Check is $1 billion in extra funds through the Crisis Emergency Assistance Program.
Putting pressure on global oil supply, but President Biden is taking historic action to mitigate its impacts on American families. He is releasing 1 million barrels of oil a day from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is a historic action that he's taken. He rallied global partners to release millions of barrels of oil, and under President Biden, U.S. oil production is up and track
Property damage from sea level rise and other disasters and reduced health impacts. The analysis of the Office of Management and Budget, which administers the federal budget, is the first published estimate of avoided climate-related social costs resulting from legislation. The social cost of carbon is an estimate of the economic cost that would occur from a future level of carbon pollution. And the bill's climate provisions are projected to reduce the country's carbon emissions by roughly 40% by 2030. Early in his presidency, Joe Biden pledged to reduce U.S. emissions from 2005 levels, at least in half by 2030, and achieve net zero emissions by 2050. In the shorter term, the analysis projects the bill will save between roughly $34 billion and $84 billion each year by the end of the decade. Climate-related disasters could cost the U.S. federal budget roughly $2 trillion per year, a 7.1% loss in annual revenue by the end of the century. There are three main ways the bill targets rising prices. First, it plans to reduce the federal deficit, which is the difference between how much the U.S. government spends and how much it takes in taxes and revenue. And when there's less money floating in the economy, there tends to be less demand and fewer price hikes. Second, it will promote the production of certain goods, mainly in renewable energy. Having more supply than demand can help lower some cost over time, he added. Third, and more directly, one provision of the bill will help limit the price growth of certain prescriptions,
as these companies will have fewer dollars to spend on resources to deploy 5G and other spectrum capabilities. Is it your understanding that enacting the 15% minimum tax on book income as written in the tax and spend bill will raise taxes on spectrum license holders, thereby raising prices on already financially strapped consumers?
It is. I'm hopeful for a technical correction so that we can consider spectrum auction holdings the same as other infrastructure holdings.
So it is meaning